how far I believe in that. Um, I also believe that we've never been to the moon, which I think very, very, very few people believe. Like, believing in aliens, I'm guessing there's a good 30%, 40% of people, maybe more, that believe in that. But I don't believe we've ever been to the moon, and I'm guessing there's maybe like 1% or less of people that believe that one. Yeah, but if you think about it, Kate, I'll give you this one is really, really easy to believe if you look at it, just a few of the facts. First of all, we supposedly, flew to the moon, walked around on there 2 or 3 times, 31 years ago, and have never done it again since. Or something like, I think the first time we did it was like in 1969. And then we did it again a couple of more times in the next year or two. And then we never did it again since then. In the next 30 years. And listen to this. NASA has announced that in 10 more years' time, they want to walk on the moon. It's like, well, you already did it 30 years ago, back in the day when computers were the size of this building. And, when your home PC took that much space. And now technology has progressed so far. You didn't have carbon fibers technology and all that kind of stuff like 30, 40 years ago. So you have all these new technologies, all these new materials. Everything is like 100 times stronger and more well-designed now than it was 30, 40 years ago. And you're going to need 10 more years' time to be able to prepare to put a man on the moon? Back in 1969 when they first started to prepare to put a man on the moon, they did it in like 3 years or something, like from the first, I don't know, it was a very short amount of time from when they decided to put a man on the moon to when they did it, like just a couple of years. And then now we need 10 years to do it again? It's like, no. And then, okay, that's just one fact. The fact that it hasn't been done in the last 30 years, like, kind of tips you off that it wasn't really done back then. And then some people are probably, like, the non-conspiracy theorists who considered the intelligent bunch, probably saying stuff like, well, why would they want to? What's the point? They just, they did it, and why do it again? There's nothing to do there. Just walk around and play golf. And it's like, well, as if they wouldn't do it again if they could. Like, the government spends, what, millions and millions of dollars researching, like, some fish in the bottom of the ocean, but they don't want to spend money to put a man on the moon again? Like, now that we have cameras that aren't black and white? Like... now that we can, like... I don't know. There's, like, tons of stuff you could do on the moon. Give me a break. So what? So yeah, and then, okay, we haven't been in 30 years. Neil Armstrong, ever heard of him? I think he was the first guy to walk on the moon. Shortly after walking on the moon and becoming the first man to ever walk on the moon, he left NASA. He quit his job. He's like the most famous astronaut on the planet, and he quit his job shortly after walking on the moon. Not only that, after doing it, he refused to talk about it. He refused to give interviews. He would not talk about going to the moon. So he supposedly went to the moon, and then he quit his job and never talked about doing it again. Why? Because the guy felt guilty, obviously. He's like, it was fake, it was staged, it was done in a warehouse somewhere. And then, and he's an honorable guy, and he just decided, no, I don't want to spend the next few years of my life being interviewed constantly about walking on the moon when it's something I didn't actually do. So he quit NASA, and he never gave an interview. I think he talked about it in his whole life. He did, like, for the next 5 years or 10 years, he didn't talk about it, and then I think he had some bills to pay, and he did a couple interviews later on in life or something. And I could be wrong about that. It could be he never did talk about it again. But yeah, so like that's like, again, And then there's other things. There's things like, if you watch the videos, NASA wouldn't let people, when the news, like the media, went to NASA to look at the footage of people walking on the moon, they they at the time had color cameras, but they didn't use them when they were on the moon. Like the astronauts in the space shuttle had color cameras, but they didn't use them. They used like shittier ones on purpose. And then when the media went to the NASA and they're like, "Can we have the footage?" They're like, "No, you can't have the footage. But what you can do is we're going to take the footage and display it on a wall, not even a screen, on a wall, and then you can use your own cameras to record the footage, and then that's what you can put on TV." So what they were doing was they were just like trying to downgrade the video footage so you wouldn't be able to find flaws in it. Why? Because it was done in a warehouse. And then there's other things like when they're walking around on the moon with these handheld cameras, not once do they do a 360 or a panoramic view. They always just do one direction for some strange reason. Not once do they point the cameras at the sky, and what you can see of the sky is totally black. There are no stars. And then there's an interview with the astronauts, and they actually asked them in the interview, what do the stars look like? And the astronaut goes, stars? I don't remember any stars. And it's like, but, like, why wouldn't there, and they say that you can't see any stars from the moon, but why wouldn't you? There's no atmosphere, there's nothing, like, it's just, you're in outer space where the stars are the brightest they'll ever be anywhere, and you're standing on the moon, which has no atmosphere, so you're just why wouldn't you be able to see the stars in the video? And then the astronauts actually comment that they didn't notice any stars. Like, it's like, what the fuck? Yeah, so, and there's more and there's more and there's more. Like in the video of that they did take, they show the flag. If you look at the flag's waving. Why would a flag be waving? There's no wind. There's no atmosphere on the moon. There's nothing. It's just a rock sitting in a void, and the flag is waving. And the astronauts say it's solar winds. Okay, solar winds. Solar winds. And then what else? Okay, one last thing. The lunar landing module, or whatever it's called, when they show that, it's like just sitting perfectly on kind of like level ground, and yeah. And then people who did the science said that when the lunar because it kind of drops to the moon, and then it fires rockets to stop itself from smashing into the moon. So it kind of just drops down at a good rate of speed, and then as it gets closer to the surface, it fires rockets to counteract its dropping. And people who did the science said that those rockets should have like dug a hole. They should have sprayed up a shitload of dust and stuff. They said they were actually worried that when it landed, its rockets would dig such a large hole that the lunar module might tip over when it landed. It might land like in the pit that its thrusters dug and be at an odd angle or whatever, or maybe tip over and roll. But no, when you look at the video, it's just sitting there perfectly fine, and there's absolutely no disturbance underneath it where it's big ass rock shot at the ground, and the ground is pretty much all just like dust and sand, and for some reason it just landed perfectly on sand without disturbing it. So yeah. And plus, it looks like it's made out of tinfoil, which is kind of odd. Like, you think they could have faked that at least better, anyways, yeah. So when you look at all those kind of things, even though it's something that almost no one believes, it seems like a fairly easy one to believe. It was for me anyways. I don't know about you.